Hey, this is Sri here. Now listen, if you have landed on this video, my guess is that you're probably struggling a little bit with boundaries, and I know that's a really difficult thing to establish in relationships and marriages, especially if you're feeling like you're inadequate or you're not good enough and you're having to deal with some of those internal wounds within yourself. So in today's video, I'm going to talk you through a few important steps that you need to take in order to be able to establish some really healthy boundaries for yourself in your relationship or marriage. Now, I know that sometimes when we hold on to these wounds of inadequacy and not feeling good enough, that can have a really detrimental impact on your relationship or marriage, and can often lead to challenges such as, husbands wanting to separate or have a divorce, and it just means that the relationship's not quite where you want it to be. And so if you're in that boat at the moment, my heart goes out to you, but at the same time, I really want you to know that I am here to support you if you're needing that at this moment in time. So, if you are needing some guidance and some direction, either through just wanting to talk about it or you're wanting to learn a little bit more about my program, the Authentic Relationship System, and how it can potentially help you in your relationship and marriage, I'd love to be of service to you. So all you need to do is just click on the link below where it says book a call with me, just in the description section. Just choose a time that works for you and I'll make sure I contact you at the scheduled time, and we can just be able to determine a pathway for you to help you to move forward. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below, so every week you get access to my latest videos teaching you about how to save your marriage, how to become the best version of yourself, and also how to learn more about male psychology as well, so that you can really influence your partner or your husband in the best possible way. Now, boundaries are talked a lot about in relationships, and often it stems from the fact that you've got two individuals with two totally polarizing views of the world and totally different experiences coming into it, and ultimately wanting to feel special, to feel important, to feel respected, and so forth. But then often what happens is one party is often trying to gain more power or gain more control, and then the other person starts to feel inadequate and inferior, and often feeling like they're not good enough and unworthy of love and so forth. And if you're feeling like this and this resonates with you, my heart goes out to you, and that's why I really want to help you to give you some really important steps that you can take right now. Now, the reason boundaries are so important is that firstly what they do is that they reinforce self-care. See, often when partners are in a relationship, and in particular women, what will happen is they're so focused on the other person and just giving, it depletes their sense of self. And so when their sense of self is completely depleted, what often happens is over a period of sometimes 5, 10, 15, 20 years, that person no longer recognizes themselves. They often find that at the beginning of the relationship, they were in a really healthy place in terms of their self-esteem and self-worth. But then over time, that just completely is depleted. And I often hear from my clients about, they say to me, Sri, I don't even know who I am anymore. So, this is why boundaries are important, because we want to try and prevent that from occurring as much as we can. And if it has happened, you absolutely can flip that for sure. Now, in terms of the types of boundaries that we want to be establishing, there are two important ones that we really want to remember. So the first boundary that we want to understand are absolute boundaries. Now, absolute boundaries are the boundaries that we actually set internally within ourselves, the standards that we're setting. So in other words, what they are is a commitment and a contract to really connect with our authentic selves. And why they're important is because they help us stay true to ourselves and not require the external world for validation and approval. When I say the external world, I'm talking about people, circumstances in order to fill ourselves up. Now, examples of absolute boundaries typically use the form of I statements. So it might be something like, I am now making a commitment to myself to say no. I am making a commitment now to not spend so much time with that particular person because they're not healthy for me. I am now making a commitment to be kind to myself now. So those are examples of absolute boundaries. Now, the other type of boundary is an external boundary. And what that is that we're communicating in a really clear and loving and authentic way how we wish to be treated with another person, especially with personal relationships and those people that are close to us. So you might say something such as, listen honey, I just want to let you know that I didn't appreciate it when you did X or when you did Y. And I ask you kindly to not do that anymore. Or I didn't appreciate it when you said that or when you did that. Or I was really hurt when you did that. And just by articulating it in that particular way, it can be a really, really important step in order to move forward and to establish that healthy sense of self. Because what you're actually saying is, I'm actually worth something. I deserve to be treated well. Because here's the thing, if you don't set standards for yourself, then other people won't treat you in that way as well, because it's all a mirror. And so that's what we have to understand. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk you through 4 important and healthy boundaries that you can set in your relationship or marriage, just to further improve the quality of the marriage, but also really set some beautiful standards within yourself. Now, the first boundary that we need to set is to learn to say no. You know, when we don't have a healthy sense of self, we get walked all over. You know, people do things that we don't want them to do. We get asked to do things that we don't want to do. And then what ends up happening is we become resentful about that. Or we just feel like, hey, look, that's just the way it is because, you know, I just don't really believe I'm enough, or I just feel like he's more important, and so on. We have to remember to learn to say no. If there are some things that you don't want to do and your husband is kind of forcing that upon you, you need to make sure that you do your best to truly step up and say no. It is okay and you deserve it. You deserve to have a situation where you actually set some really beautiful standards for yourself. Because the beauty of it is once you learn to say no, then he's going to slowly start to recognize those boundaries and honor that. He may be a little bit grumpy at the beginning because you're creating friction and you're changing things up. But in time, assuming that he is a good man and he has some good standards, you're going to find that he starts to respect and value you so much more because you're respecting and valuing you so much more as well. Now, the second boundary that you need to set is to set up some me time. You know, the chances are if you've got kids, then you've probably been putting all your time and energy into them or your partner and so forth, and you've been at the bottom of the pile. But it is such an important thing for you to set aside some me time. And even if that's just saying like once a week for maybe a couple of hours, you want to go for a hike, you want to go and get a massage, whatever it is, start with baby steps and make sure you set that time for you. I promise you that over time, it's going to make a huge amount of difference, but you really need to make sure that you set those standards there. Now, the third boundary that you want to establish for yourself is to speak your truth. Your opinion counts. What you think matters. And so it's really important that you do speak your truth to your husband or your partner. It is very, very important because what then that does is it means that you start to value your own opinion. And once again, you're setting beautiful standards for yourself. Never hold back on speaking your truth. Now, yes, there are moments from time to time where we have to curb it a little bit because, you know, that person might be in a bit of a grumpy mood, and if I was to, you know, say something, that might mean that person might get triggered, and it creates this whole spiral of negativity. So sometimes it's important to pick the right moments. But as a rule of thumb, you need to remember that you've got to speak your truth. It is such an important thing. Now, speaking your truth doesn't necessarily mean that you're always getting angry at someone or criticizing them. It just means that you're looking deep within and going, okay, what message am I trying to convey to that person in the most loving and authentic way that I can? And if you do that in a really beautiful way, then it's going to be received much better than if you're, you know, being critical or, you know, getting really angry at that person as well. So just something to point out, speak your truth. Very, very important. And I promise you once again, you're going to feel so much better about you. Now, the fourth boundary that we need to be setting is to remember that it is not your responsibility to make your partner happy and vice versa. Now, this ties a little bit into setting aside that me time. But when we recognize that it's not our responsibility to make each other happy, that our happiness actually exists within us, then what happens is we then make sure that we dedicate the right amount of time so that we fill our own buckets up. And by filling our own buckets up and feeling really good about ourselves, then what happens is that bucket starts to overflow and you feel so much value and worth and so forth within you, that overflows, and then you can give in such a beautiful way without expecting anything in return as well. So it's really important to remember that it's not your responsibility to make the other person happy. So take the time to fill your bucket up, do the things that you love to do, spend time with those people that you love to spend time with, and I promise in time, you'll once again start to really build that healthy sense of self. Now, I know setting these boundaries is really lovely in principle, But sometimes we need to make sure that we're in the right emotional state and that we've dealt with some of the internal wounds in order to be able to feel comfortable setting those boundaries. Because sometimes it's not as easy as just going, all right, I'm just going to set some me time up, because we've been programmed and conditioned over many years to operate in that particular way. So this is part of the reason why I've created my Authentic Relationship System training program, because it's really there to help to heal from within, to really help you to become the best version of yourselves. And then you can start to really set some amazing boundaries for yourself and for your family as well. So love to be of service to you if you feel like you're needing some support and some guidance on this path, not just from me, from an incredible community of women who have been through some really difficult times and have been able to come out of it and have been able to really heal as well. So if it's something that feels right for you and you'd like to learn a little bit more about it, then all you need to do is just click on the link below where it says book a call with me. Just choose a time that works for you. I'll contact you at that scheduled time, and I can learn a little bit more about where you are now, where you want to get to, and how we can bridge that gap in the shortest possible time as well. I'm really looking forward to being of service to you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you've liked it, make sure you hit the like button below. If you want to get more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And do let me know what your biggest takeaway is from this video as well. I really do value the comments and the questions that come up on my channel, and I'll make sure I respond to each and every one of them. And if you want to learn how to save a marriage after separation, just click this video above. And if you want to learn the 3 myths that you need to avoid in order to be able to save your marriage, just click this video above. Thank you so much. You've been amazing, and I'll talk to you in the next video.